Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Middle Ground podcast. It's Saturday. Well, it's not really Saturday. Today is Thursday, but I'm releasing this on Saturday. And Alan Farley has taken the time to sit down with me to discuss elections because elections have been in the news a lot lately. And so I know that a lot of you have questions. I have questions. And so I was glad that Alan can make some time to talk with me. Alan, you're our election administrator. Is that the full title or is there more to it?
Well, chief bottle washer, cook. I mean, you name it, whatever it is required to do it, we do it. So
right, whatever needs to be done, you get
right.
done.
All of the duties assigned.
Exactly. I think they call you. The D&J says you're Rutherford County's Election Commission Administrator. Does that sound?
Yeah,
that's a mouthful.
I answered. Yeah, I mean, it's just election administrator. I mean, I answered to anything. So
That's fine. So. As the election administrator, you're in charge of our elections, right? For Rutherford County.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And my job is to make sure to oversee all the elections and be the custodian of all the election records. So.
Okay. All right. And you're from Rutherford County, right? How long have you lived here?
I'm going on my 53rd year. So I'm born and bred native of Rutherford County. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And I spoke with Bob Mifflin about being from here, and he said you can't really say you're from here until your family's been here a couple generations, and then you can say you're from here. But
That's right. And I tell you, you don't really find many of us around anymore because I can remember, of course, growing up and being around, running around in the 80s and stuff and 70s, and kind of, you go into a restaurant and 90% of the people in there, and now you walk in and go, okay, I don't know anybody, so. Growth is, some times have changed here.
Right. We have more restaurants to choose from. That's the advantage, right?
Hey, when old Charlie's moved into town in about 85, 86, we knew we were moving up because that was the only chain we ever, that was the first chain we had. So it's
okay.
a lot has changed.
Yeah, sure. And so your job is continuing to change, right? Because we have a large amount of people moving in and things of that nature from outside, and so they're always questioning about how we do elections. Like right now in the news, there's a lot of talk about mail-in voting, right, and the concerns around mail-in voting. Can you do mail-in voting in Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, we call it absentee voting, and it's what you do is you're absentee voting by mail. And in most cases, I mean, on average, our voting population consistently, up until this past election, 98.7% of our voters vote in person. I mean, that's just the way that historically we've always voted. So, right at 1.3% of our voters vote, by absentee or by mail. That because of the pandemic and because of COVID, that has changed this election. So people are becoming more and more, educated on that process. I was surprised the number of calls that I received early on. Oh, I didn't realize that 60 years old, you could actually, that was the reason you could request. And it's always been that way. And really all these laws that we're seeing now, these laws have been in existence for quite a long time, back in the 80s and 90s. So they've been on the books for a while.
Okay, great. So let's see here. Now in Tennessee, we've been plagued with low voter turnout across the state. Do you think, why do you believe that's the case? Why are we having such low voter turnout?
Well, I think a lot of that depends on, if you look at it, we don't really have competitive statewide races. If you go back into the 80s, I mean, it was really one party dominated. So right. You had your party primary. And then, and of course, in the 2000s, what we've got now is pendulum swung to the Republican side. You look at November of 2018 when you had a very strong competitive U.S. Senate race. They spent $100 million in the state of Tennessee, and it was very competitive, and we had a big turnout. So to me, I think a lot of they say, well, we should do this, we should do that. I mean, we're doing everything you can possibly do other than curbside voting. Of course, convenience voting, you can go to any location here now. But the issue is that you got to have competitive races. And I think that's where it starts.
That's a very good point. You mentioned convenience voting. That has to do with our super precinct voting. Is that Is that the convenience?
But I mean, your precincts are your boundaries where is determines the ballot, determines your representation.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we don't lose the definition of that. But your vote centers is where you can actually, anybody can vote. So it's more, doesn't matter what precinct you live in, you can vote at that location. So they have been a huge success, been very popular with our voters. We normally get complaints on election day or the day after because somebody showed up at the wrong location and it was too late to go to the proper location.
Right.
With vote centers, you don't have wrong locations because you can vote. Also, too, you have people that they moved, and you would be amazed at the amount of people that move within the county from year to year. And so what happens there, the old way, you had to leave that location and drive to another location in downtown and then go to what they call a fail-safe site. And so
Right.
the fail-safe site, you had to change your address and then you vote. Now it's all done at the vote center. So what's happening is you've seen these people once they left, they didn't vote.
Sure.
So what happened was, so now, we've had, 2,000 or 3,000 address changes at, in big elections, and people are now voting. Whereas in the past, they were just leaving and not voting. So that's one way too.
That's
That's
great.
actually made not only convenience, but it's gotten more participation.
Has the rest of the state adopted this yet, or is still Rutherford County like the test market?
This year, there was 3 counties that got to go through the same format that we did: Williamson County, Wilson County, 2 neighboring counties, and also Monroe County in East Tennessee. And so then they'll go before the General Assembly and be confirmed after their pilot if everything goes well. So we set the model. We established the process of how to do it, the mechanisms used to do it, and so then I got to be a part of the process of working with the state. This should be the criteria, things that you should have to be able to do before you will be able to be considered. So being part of that process is so kind of, and I'm very protective because I don't want that process to fail. So we want to make sure that everybody's got the tools and resources they need and for it to be able to execute it.
Okay. I'm talking with Alan Farley, our election administrator here in Rutherford County. And Alan, how has COVID-19 affected your job?
Well, for one, I've not had a day off since 1st of April when this all started, because
Wow.
I've been consumed really from the whole time frame of April, May, and June, and even we started early voting in July, of trying to figure out because it's been a moving target, the information we've been getting, but also too of putting the different things in place for us to execute. How do we make sure that people can actually vote and be safe?
Mm-hmm.
Also too, with the increase in the August 2016 election, we had 375 people vote absentee. Well, the August 2020 election, we had 4,040 people. So
Wow.
it takes absentee voting takes a lot of time and money and resources and people to go through that process, because you have to process the ballot application, then you have to get the ballot sent out, then it comes back, and then you've got to count it. So there's multiple ways of absentee voting. So that way, trying to figure, okay, how can we get these ballots counted? How can we get them processed? And coming up with those. So the nursing homes was we always go to nursing homes by law,
right?
But this time we could not. So we actually had to come up with a plan to be able to vote, our residents and nursing homes without being able to go there. So we put together a plan of we did a video training. We actually hired facility staff there. And hired them and trained them, and they actually conducted the voting.
Wow.
And it went really well. Actually, the plan that we put together was endorsed by the Tennessee Department of Health. And so several other counties kind of followed the plan that we did. because we try to make it as easy and as foolproof as possible for those individuals. And they did a superb job. I mean, they really paid attention to detail. And that's their residents. So they're important. So we made sure that there was 2 residents or 2 people per facility, and they conducted the voting. Of course, you had the all those requirements that are required by law, and all that training. So, but they did a superb job. So it went off really well. So, and that's probably going to be the same plan we'll use in November, because I don't see them letting us into nursing facilities, come October.
So would those votes have normally been counted as early votes, or is that part of that big spike in numbers, or how were those?
But we ended up having to do them because we couldn't take the machines in. So they normally vote on machine. So
Right.
what they ended up doing, they ended up voting on a ballot card like you would for absentee voting, because that way they could actually fill in their card instead of going in and bringing the machine in, and I guess the touching contamination of all that stuff, and you take the one machine to multiple facilities.
Sure.
That just didn't work. So basically you had a ballot bag and your ballots, a notebook for each facility, so that way you wouldn't cross contaminating, or had one in one facility and vice versa and all that. So that was things that we had to take into consideration as well.
Okay. Let's see. I got a few more questions here for you. So on election night, the vote totals come in. How do you? I know it's a madhouse there at the election commission on election night, right? There's a lot of people hanging around, and there's like 6 people working, is what it seems like. So how can you explain how that goes down? What's that evening look like as far as when the votes get totaled and get out to the public and things of that nature?
Well, at 7 o'clock, we'll actually, when the polls close, and then we'll actually total all the early and absentee votes. So at
no
that point in
counting
time,
is taking place before 7 o'clock.
Well, there's the counting board meets, and the counting of the absentee ballots, because now with what we had this time, we had to start at 7 o'clock. I mean, 7 a.m. was the earliest we could start, and they had to go through, and they open up all the envelopes, and they go through that whole process of counting those. And so, but you have numbers, but you don't really know. You don't know what those numbers are.
Sure.
But then, so what you do is you read all the tally cards for all the machines that are used during early voting, and then you come and you tabulate all that. Our machine vendor, Microvote, they're the ones here that handle all that. It's kind of like when you go, I mean, you're a man about town with the bow tie. I'm sure you've been to the Academy Awards, and you always hear about these accounting firms that come in and they know who the winners are.
Right.
What they do, so they actually come in and they're the ones who pull all that together. So what they do is they pull that information together, and then at 7:05 or whatever, after all that's done, then they print out whatever those results are, and they give them to me, and I check them for accuracy and everything, make sure that they're ready to be released, and then that way make sure, when I say checking for accuracy, is that if we had 50 machines used in early voting, that we have recorded the votes of all 50 machines.
Gotcha.
Not that is it to my liking or not, and go back and I want to make sure clear that up. So verify that, okay, we had 50 machines recording of all that, and then we release it to the online to the media. And then of course then it's kind of quiet, and then at about 7:45 it's a madhouse, because all the polling locations all start to report. And now people that want it immediate, especially campaigns, now when the polls are closed at 7 o'clock, when the polls close, the machine operators, they close down and report the results of each machine. And then at that point in time, they take those tally tapes and they post them on a window or a glass door of each location, so that people that want to know, immediately, they can send people to all those locations, and then they get the raw, just right off the machine. I mean, the paper's still burning. You know, it's so warm from being off the printer. But then they had to get everything packed up, and then they bring the results and everything back to us, and then they drop off all, everything secured, and then they bring it to us, and then our commissioners, Republican, Democrat commissioners, they unlock the boxes, and then they pull that information out, and then they hand it over to our machine vendor, and then they go and then they read the tally cards, and then those tally cards match what was on the machine, at 7:10 or 7:15. So that's how all that information is transferred through that. So
that's why it takes a little bit of time. It's not like
right. I mean, by 9 o'clock, we're pretty much done. Now there's some few other larger counties. I know that Shelby County, I mean, there's been elections at 9:30. They've not even reported their early voting.
Wow.
And so, so we're wrapped up and got everything in ready to go. So I mean, I've been very fortunate, very pleased with that process. Now, come November, depending on the number of absentee ballots we got, how long it takes to count, my goal is, I mean, I hope we do know, but but there's there's that chance we may not know election night, because it may have to go into a second full day of counting.
Yeah.
But our plan is, hopefully we're going to get started as early as we can, have enough people, and it may be 2 o'clock in the morning, but our goal is we're going to have our results as soon as we possibly can.
That's great news. Let's see, I've got a couple, like an opinion question. So these next few questions are like my own personal, like, because I've been around elections and seen them and stuff, but so like when someone takes the trouble of typing in a name for a write-in candidate, right? For whatever reason, do you get to see those? Does anybody get to see what's written down?
Well, the county board, that I mentioned, and those are residents that are, they're just like poll officials who work at a polling location.
Okay.
If you've got 20 county board, you have 10 R's and 10 D's. So you have the accountability measures there. But they get those because that's all recorded on the tally tapes. So those tally tapes come back to them when they are returned, and then they go through, and then if we have certified write-in candidates, then they record those results. Now, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and well, there's some bizarre people that get votes. Ozzy Osbourne's gotten votes. Those don't get counted. It's only the ones by law is ones that are certified write-in candidates.
Okay. Let's see. Do you think, here's a good question. Do you think that an election can be rigged or stolen? Do you think it's possible to steal an election?
I mean, anything's possible. Can the most powerful man in the world be, assassinated? The president. I mean, if someone's willing to give their, anything's possible. Is it likely?
Right.
No. I mean,
there's a lot of that would have to fail, right? There's a lot of things that had to fall into place.
Right. There's a lot of checks and balances, but the biggest thing is that, as I said a while ago, you have multiple people are always around, and you always have more than one set of eyes. And, and of course, if you had that situation happen, somebody, they always say anytime you have a group of people, somebody's guilty conscience is going to talk.
Sure.
So it's one of those things. You have the checks and balances through that process, but also too, you have the human part of that equation. And of course, if somebody sees something that they're not supposed to be doing, I feel like that the people that we have as poll officials will call that out at that point in time.
Yeah.
So anything is possible. Now I can only speak to Tennessee and specifically Rutherford County.
Of course.
So let me make that point clear. But
right, because every state's different, right? They have election.
Every state is different. Every state is different. And but if anybody's willing to take the chance and the risk and all that, I'm sure, something can anything's possible.
Sure.
But I just don't think it's likely. I can promise you this. I've been married to my wife 27 years. We've been together 34. I'm not going to jail for her. And I'm not going to jail for anybody else.
Fair
I
enough.
say that jokingly, but no, I mean, I just, the integrity of the ballot is the most important thing that we've got.
It really is. I agree. Let's see. So once again, guys, I'm talking to Alan Farley, Rutherford County's Election Commission Administrator. We're talking about elections and how Rutherford County handles it. Alan, do you expect there to be a big turnout for the presidential election?
I do. We typically we'll vote 64% normally in a November election. I think we may see upwards of 65, 68% this time.
Wow, that'd be huge.
If our volume is any indication, we're getting a lot of calls. We're getting a lot of requests for absentee ballots. So I think, it's and even some of our people in this August election, they were showing up, and then they said, okay, wait a minute, I thought we were voting on the president. No, that's in November. So there's some eagerness out there. There's some people that are motivated to go to the polls to elect our president, and which is great. But the thing is that, and I got to get on my soapbox here for just a second. The government that's closest to us, that has the greatest immediate impact on us, is our local government, the city, county, and state. But it doesn't draw the attention that the national, of course. And I understand, because everybody's got national news, and everybody's following all that. So a lot of the local stuff doesn't get the press. And of course, you've got people we talked about that are not from here, so they don't really know the local players, but they know who the gubernatorial, the senatorial, and the presidential candidates are. But I'm gonna tell you, people need to be as engaged in their city and in our county elections and our state elections just as much as president. So I'll get off my soapbox now. But yeah, I think we're gonna have a. Do what?
That you're preaching to the choir, so keep it up.
So my thing is, I think we'll have 65, 68% of that. And 2016, November 2016 was the highest vote we ever had. We had right at 110,000.
Okay.
I think that we'll vote 120,000 plus.
Wow.
This November.
If
right now I'm thinking that in November of 18, we fell 8,000 shy in a midterm election of voting what we voted in the presidential. So which is very good. But like I said, that's we had a very competitive race there. People came out. But I think we could vote. I think we're going to have between 190 and 200,000 registered voters come November. Right now we're at 182.
Okay.
So that's a huge gap. A huge increase. So I think we can reach the 190 to 190, 192,000 range. But so that's a lot of voters.
That is.
So
service.
We'll be prepared for them. And
you've got a lot of people that work for you on election day and around. Are you looking to hire more people?
Well, we've been very good. We've got a great group of poll workers, and hats off to them, because August would not have happened without them, because there's 7 of us in this office, and we voted 42,000 and a little bit over 42,000 voters in August. That can't happen with just 7 or 8 people.
Not at all.
And our poll workers, they responded. We had more than what we needed. We were anticipating a drop off there, because it was a moving target. Some people, did they come up sick or have a family member come up sick? So we wanted to make sure that we had enough people. So we did, but we're always looking for, always want to have more than what we need.
Sure.
And so
how does someone get in touch with you? If they want to?
They can call our office at 615-898-7743.
Okay.
And just whoever answers the phone, just say, hey, I want to work the election. What do I need to do? And
all right. And if anybody has any questions or anything like that, can they contact you?
Do it now?
If anyone has any questions about elections or anything like that, can they contact you directly? Or
Absolutely.
okay,
And one thing I think is very important, and you touched on it a while ago. There's 50 different ways that states hold elections. Each state does it differently, and you're going to see things, you know, through social media. You're going to see things that you're not used to seeing because it's not our method of voting. Make sure you get your information from credible sources. When in doubt, call us. That's what we're here for. We'll be more than happy to answer any question that any voter has. And no matter how small, how crazy or stupid they think it may be, if you don't know, that's the only way we're going to learn, or people are going to learn. Is just pick up the phone and call, and people do. But you know, a lot of people think that okay, they've seen it or they saw it on a meme. It's true, it's factual. But you know, a lot of times, you know, that's not factual, and so sometimes things get kind of blown out of proportion, and you know, so just when in doubt, give us a call. Rely on very reliable sources for your information.
that's good advice, no matter what we're talking about, but especially with elections.
Exactly.
Well, Alan, is there anything else you'd like to share with people out there?
You know, I think that come November, I'll be glad when Thanksgiving's here. It's been a wild, crazy year.
Vacation.
Yeah. So my thing is that, you know, I was very pleased with the way our in-person voting. You know, we voted more people early than we did on election day, and that's because there's a tomorrow. You know, if you show up, okay, well, there's a little line here. I think I'm going to come back, and you know, 10 o'clock tomorrow. Well, then you got that. But election day, I mean, it doesn't matter if there's a line. There's a line, and you don't really want to be, you know, and you know, we're going to have everybody social distance, but you know, you're going to be confined in a room.
Right.
So vote early. You know, if you request an absentee ballot, get your request in early. Where the issue is going to happen is, and I think this is where there's been misunderstanding with the post office. If you wait that last, because you have to have your request 7 days prior to election day.
Okay.
So October the 27th is the last day to request. Okay. But the issue is that the last 2 weeks, the last 14 days is where you're going to have a lot of mail going. That's where the post office is saying, okay, after this date, it's likely to be late.
Right.
You know, it's not like it just takes a day to go across town anymore. You know, that it's a little bit, it takes 2 to 3 days. So get the request in early, because what we're doing now, the requests are coming in now. We're getting those processed and ready to go. So when we do have a ballot, we will go ahead and get those mailed out. And so hopefully, if you got it in early, you're going to get it plenty of time.
Sure.
And then you can go ahead and then fill it out. And then when you get your ballot, don't let it sit on your desk or your kitchen counter for a week or 2 weeks. Get it, fill it out, and get it back into us.
Okay. All right. That's good advice. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me, Alan. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Gay. And appreciate what you do to help educate the folks of Rutherford County, and always a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you.